Besides left tackle, what is the Titans' biggest need right now? And I guess first, guys, I should ask, do we all agree that left tackle is the biggest need? And the biggest problem facing this team?
Mm-hmm.
Spearmint did not work out.
So. Did not.
Spearmint?
Experiment did not work out.
You said spearmint.
No.
You put a gum wrapper there, probably have the same result.
Yeah.
Honestly.
You wrap it up and throw it away.
Not in mint condition. What is the next biggest need then?
Middle linebacker.
Okay.
Got to have somebody that's going to lead the defense a little bit better. I like, of course, Azeez Al-Shire. I do. Mm-hmm. But I think for him to be better, he needs another guy with him. I think that was his role in San Francisco. He ain't a bad player at all, but he has to have somebody else there with him. Those positions where it has to be hot spots. You know what I'm saying? Like somebody like hit you somewhere. Oh, don't hit me there. Like there's a hot spot that you have to have on defense. That's a dude up front, a middle linebacker second on that one. And then you go get a corner. Or you flip either way you want to look at. Go get a corner, then a linebacker. But you need a dude at middle linebacker, too. I'm sticking with that one for right now because there's so many other spots. That one, to me, is a must-have.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, just the left tackle isn't going to fix the offensive line, right? So you can go with maybe, like Will said, a center possibly. You've got to boost the offensive line. Now, the thing that I look at is cornerback because – this has clearly been a position where they haven't drafted extremely well. And now you've got the Caleb Farley situation where with all that has happened to him, I really don't know if he will ever play football again. And maybe he will, but I don't know if it's going to be in a Titans jersey. I wish him the very best and whatever happens, though. However, the fact of the matter is they need help there. And cornerback is a difficult position, especially in the NFL to play, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you either good or you're not. And I think I agree with you on the linebacker situation. I mean, the linebackers in general, that room needs improvement.
It does.
But, yeah, I'd say cornerback. You got to get a real talented guy, and you got to continue to start to build that secondary because it has been an issue, and it continues to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's still offense for me, guys.
Yeah.
It's still offense. Honestly, I was tempted to say guard is the second biggest priority behind tackle. But I'm going to say speed at wide receiver. And the Titans are going to have to be okay with the fact that you can have a 170-pound wide receiver and still play the same style of football that you're currently playing. You know who else is running vertical run game, grounded pound, hit you in the mouth football? The Philadelphia Eagles. You know how big Devontae Smith is? About as big as I was as a cross-country runner in college. That guy is probably listed at 170. He's maybe 155 soaking wet. The Titans have to learn that in the 21st century, you can have a small, fast wide receiver, and it's not the worst thing in the world. And to me, this team still lacks any speed whatsoever on this offense and really on the defense, too. Tyjae Spears is quick. We need straight line speed. We need the kind of wide receiver that Tua Tagovailoa has in Tyreek Hill in Miami. And obviously, those do not grow on trees.
No.
But the reason why Miami's offensive line is so often not exposed for how bad it is because Tua gets the ball out of his hand remarkably quickly. Because you have wide receivers who can get open in a very short amount of time and then, and wait, this is a crazy concept, break tackles with the ball in their hands. There is no one on this Titans offense who's getting around a tackle right now other than Tyjae Spears. Derrick Henry's not doing it because he can't get to his third step before a 300-pound lineman is in his face in the backfield. That's not what Derrick Henry does. Tyjae Spears is the only player on this offense right now that can make somebody miss in space. Yes? That's how I see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've seen it numerous times from him, but yeah, there's not many other guys. And look, the wide receiver room, there's some patchwork in there too, right? You're missing your first-round pick who can't stay on the field, but he's not the speed guy by any means. And they've had chances to get the speed guy, and I just feel like they've pushed away from that situation.
They were waving at the camera instead during the draft.
Yeah. Other guys with speed guys, Zay Flowers, Tank Dell, Tyreek you mentioned.
Tank Dell's doing pretty well in Houston.
Devontae, Puka Nacua is not a speed dude, but he's a smaller guy.
Jalen
Hyatt's another fast, smaller dude. You're right on that one. Chris Olave is not huge himself.
Khalif Raymond, who Steve mentions in the FNM Bank chat, he's doing pretty well in Detroit right now.
Tyler Lockett's a smaller dude. Yeah, I'm with you.
And as good as Kyle Phillips has been for the last 2 weeks, he's the guy that finds space in between a zone on third downs. That's not a take the top off the defense slot receiver. You're not throwing deep balls to Kyle Phillips.
Mm-hmm. He's a real good route runner.
Yeah, he is. When he's healthy, he's a good football player.
Yeah.
615-737-1045. Radio Ron is in Lebanon. Up next with us this morning. What's up, Ron?
Good morning, radio family. How's everybody this morning on this beautiful day?
Good morning.
Good.
Well, I think all the points from the start of the show up to now have been pointing a lot of fingers at a lot of different players, especially the O-line. We haven't really quit talking about them, but I think that the main thing that needs to be looked at is the coaching. And I already called in last week and told you that Vrabel was not that media guy. And I'm telling you right now, he may be that coach, but he's putting the best he can out there, which is sad because he drafted them. He's the one that went way out of his way to get Dillard. He got too small Brewer. He's the one that went and got these guys. Now he's got to put them out there, and they're not good enough. So why do you go get Treylon Burks? Why do you go get Tajay Spears? They're the best player on the that's up next in the draft? Or is that something you needed because you didn't pay A.J. Brown, who's a Pro Bowler? You've already got a Pro Bowler in the backfield in Derrick Henry. So why don't you block for him? So you go out and get Tajay Spears, which is a different concept of Henry, which is smart, but you still got to block for him. And I think it all comes down to coaching and recruiting. And we put ourselves in this position decaying over the last couple of years with the O-line that we're at a point where we're not optimistic about the rest of the season. Now let me key on this. We ain't lost – how many games have we lost at home? So if we go undefeated at home and we have a 500 season, or we come down to the end of the usual Titans things, where at the end of the season we've got 1 or 2 games we could win and make the playoffs, whether they're on the road or at home, we're going to be in that same position because everybody else has already said, well, we've lost, the season's over, 3-14, fire the coach, rebuild, new offensive line, let's keep Peter, that's it. But we're not keen on the fact here that the season's not over. We're really good at home, whether you think we are or not, or anybody thinks we're good at home. The defense is only giving up 20 points a game less. They're really not that bad, except for the secondary can be improved. But our main concern is, why didn't you build an offensive line behind a quarterback that's seasoning, a running back that's seasoning? Then you get rid of a great receiver, got to go get DeAndre Hopkins, but you can't throw it to a great Pro Bowl receiver. So the problem is that the coaching and the recruiting never got us an offensive line, and that's where it all starts.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate the call. I agree with a lot of that, and I do agree that this defense played well enough to win yesterday. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, when you got the 10th ranked scoring defense paired with this offense, this defense is playing a lot of offenses that have the full playbook at their disposal because they're playing with leads. And they're playing to put a game away. And they can run or pass. They can play action. If you get a lead, you make an offense more predictable. Yep. And when the Titans have been able to play with a lead against Cincinnati, against Atlanta, they can tee off on a quarterback because they know what's coming. I still think this secondary is not terrible when you consider the defensive line has not met expectations. Guys like Arden Key, who we said were going to be big-time players in training camp, all of us said that, hasn't lived up to really expectations. I agree. The problems begin and end with this offensive line.
It does. Ain't no other way around it. That's self-explanatory. And watching, of course, and there was a conversation earlier after the bank chat about, you put jokingly saying apologize to Ryan Tannehill with what's happening because the same thing happened to Will Levis yesterday too. It's hard to be an all-pro, Pro Bowl guy or just a stud franchise quarterback when you don't have any time. You can't finish your throws. I showed you guys on tape, Will Levis' leg going underneath him because he's getting tripped up because people let his feet and in his back. A lot of the plays that happened yesterday was because of pressure. And and you have to be able to push all that off, or you're going to continually get it. Next week, what's going to happen? On the road again, Jacksonville is going to pressure this squad. You said Tampa pressured this squad over 50% yesterday.
56.8 was their blitz percentage.
That's a ton. That's a long day at work. And when you can't, to your point earlier, block 5-on-5 or 5-on-4, your offense is going to be stagnant. Oh, you're going to throw quick outs to the sideline, or you try to dump over to the middle, or hopefully they can hold up for a deep play action pass. Or just maybe the young fella can, use his arm talent to get the ball out quick enough. Other than the first drive of the game, what else were you optimistic about? There wasn't any other drives in the game. It barely had over how many yards was it yesterday for the same? Barely 250 yards of offense, if that?
199 passing, 42 rushing.
Yeah.
That's a hard day.
And going to the caller's point, the offensive line has been an issue for the last 2 years. And you can thank John Robinson for that mostly because of the drafting. Isaiah Wilson was an absolute bust.
Wow.
Dylan Radins, as much as I think he's a good player in terms of now and can be a little bit more versatile, I don't know if that was the answer right then when you need to keep building that line. And there was some bad decision making in terms of that line. And then this year, they had not a lot of money to spend. You went out and you took a chance on Dillard. Well, that was not
right
a decision that worked out. So, yes, that was on this current staff. But a lot of it's been piling up for a while, guys, and this is the result. Because the last time I heard, Ramon, it's pretty hard to find great offensive linemen in this league unless you're developing them and you're drafting them. You can go fill in spots, but for the most part, you need your core to be your core together for a minute.
Yes, you do.
You want to hear a little bit of good news?
Not a good. It better be.
Drake has a third concert?
No, it's not. It has nothing to do with concerts this time.
No. Take us down there, Will.
This is supposed to be a special class of tackles.
It is.
Wow.
It is supposed to be a genuinely a special class of tackles where you're going to, like, we're going to analyze the draft when it's time to analyze the draft, obviously. On November 13th, though, I would say heavy favorite. You're drafting a left tackle in the first round.
Penn State got a good one.
And so does Notre Dame.
Coach Mack pointed them out this past weekend. He was like, they got a stud of a dude at left tackle. Penn State does.
Yeah, you either go with Joe or Olu.
Let's go. Get
Some
yourself a tackle,
there.
baby.
Either way, 3 letters, 1 pick.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Chris in Memphis is next on the phone lines with us. Hey, Chris.
What's up, Chris?
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
I've been listening for a while, first time calling in. I got some points I want to make out to everybody, and I'm known as Titans in Truth. I do stuff, podcast and everything as well, and I've watched this team for a long time. Yeah, say what the biggest need is, and I think the last caller kind of took the wind out of my sail. You need an offensive-minded head coach. That is the biggest need that we need because Mike Vrabel is not it. And everybody wants to blame everything else on except Vrabel. Everybody wants to say there's a talent issue. Okay, yeah, that may be a talent issue. But you got rid of John Robinson, so you really can't blame him much anymore, even though there may be some effects. You already got rid of who you blamed for that already. And you know, somebody once said, yeah, if, a chef can't really cook in the kitchen if he doesn't have all the ingredients that he needs. But here's what I say to that. A really, really good chef can take maybe don't have all the ingredients, but if you're a really good chef, you can still take those ingredients, and you may not be able to make the perfect meal, but you could make a decent, edible meal that is worth eating. But on the other side, you could also have all the perfect ingredients in the world, like in L.A. You have a lot of talent with the Chargers. You got all the talent in the world, all the ingredients. But if you ain't got a good chef, you have a bad chef, you could take it and still make a bad meal out of that, and it could taste disgusting.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
I mean, I don't think an offensive-minded head coach fixes all of this. I mean, I think the Falcons are pretty tired of their offensive-minded head coach who used to be the OC here. You can't just wave quarterback guru and make it all work. Mike Vrabel's teams, when they can block, have had outstanding offenses. In 2021, this was a top 5 offense in the NFL. But they couldn't stop a nosebleed on defense on third downs, and look how far that got him. Out in the first round. Out in the first game to Cincinnati. So, yeah, it might be more exciting and more fun to watch. But if you get an offensive-minded head coach, you're also taking away a guy who's pretty good at coaching defense.
I'm also curious, like, what coach do you guys want? I'm really curious, and that's a fair
It's a great question.
Yep. What coach do you want?
I agree.
You think that would come here too? I'm just asking.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be, smart aleck in my remark. I really am curious.
I don't know.
Everybody wants Mike McDaniel without realizing that Mike McDaniel's Dolphins don't look too hot right now either.
Only beat teams that are above 500, if I'm not mistaken. Below 500.
And that's the thing. Head coaches that are currently having success or somewhere right now, do they want to come to Tennessee and deal with what is going on now? Or I think it would probably mostly be a coordinator, right? It would have to be a coordinator that's finding success somewhere that has an opportunity.
I'll say this too for all people involved too. For about 2-3 years ago, there was the whole motto: "In J-Rob we trust, and Vrabel we trust." And it was good when it was good, right? And it's okay to say those types of things. But I'd also say at all times, let's raise the expectation of what's actually happening. Being realistic about how coaches do, how GMs do, how players are also. Like, a lot of people was ready to get AJ up out of here. He's a cancer. He's a diva. He's a this. He's a that, right? And then you get him out of here and you realize, oh, he actually is that good. You have to sometimes deal with what certain players bring along with them. AJ being in and out of the lineup, the talent is there. We got to figure out a way how to make all that work. So for all in whoever we trust crowd and believing in certain things like that, have a high expectation for what winning is sometimes and what it takes to actually win consistently in this league. That's just my take on that one. Because the product on the field is what you believe in more than anything. And if it ain't good, you got to call it what it is too. And don't make excuses for being bad at times.
Chris in the F&M Bank chat in his Burt voice says, Joe Alt might be my daddy, y'all. Left tackle from Notre Dame.
Joe Alt.
Don't we typically wait for tackles to get here and start podcasts before we call them dad?
Oh.
I don't know if we should crown another left tackle as the dad of Nashville quite yet. 615-737-1045. Oh, good. Now we've got names in the F&M Bank chat for who people want. Eric Bieniemy and then some guy from the Texans.
Jim Harbaugh, too, I'm seeing.
Oh, good.
That Texas offensive coordinator going to be hard to leave, but I wouldn't leave C.J. Stroud.
Binocular sales would rocket around Middle Tennessee if Jim Harbaugh came to coach here. And khaki pants sales.
Yes, it would be a whole different regime.